All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this Berkshire conference call. I have with us Frank de Varona. Frank is a man of many achievements, and he's been with us before on a call, and he's talked about his experiences. He was a Bay of Pigs survivor. He lived in a prison camp ran by Castro, and he survived to be able to live in America. And what he does today is he promotes patriotism and Americanism, and he's a member of the John Birch Society. And anyways, Frank, thanks for being on our conference call this morning.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Evan.
And Frank shared an important email a couple days ago, and I looked at it and I was like, we got to talk about this, because this is you know, we are just overwhelmed by people who still adore communism and socialism, and this is a lady that should not be appreciative of communism or socialism because of what it did to her husband. So I have, for everybody that's viewing this through our video that's going that's being shown right now, I have the article from the New York Post that says RFK widow Ethel Kennedy loves Che Guevara, has a subversive streak. And I just wanted Frank to talk a little bit about this topic. Frank is an expert when it comes to teaching these sort of things. And why would somebody whose husband was killed by the communists, why would she have any pleasure in supporting somebody like Che Guevara? That's a big question I have. But Frank, could you talk about that?
Sure. By the way, the article that you're talking about, that was published by the New York Post. If people want to look at it later, they can find it in the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this was very shocking to us. This article appeared on April the 15th, which 59 years ago is when we started trying to liberate Cuba. That's April 15, 1961. There was a surprise attack upon the airfields of Cuba by the Air Force of the Assault Brigade 2506. And 2 days later, April 17, is when we landed at the Bay of Pigs. So it was shocking to us on this anniversary to see this woman betraying the legacy of her own husband, Attorney General Robert Kennedy, and of course, her brother-in-law, President Kennedy. As you know, Evan, I wrote a book available in the internet, which I think you have, which is called Cuba, the Bay of Pigs, the Kennedy Assassination,
Mm-hmm.
the Vatican, and the New World Order. It's $25. You can buy it in Amazon Books by just putting my name. But anyway, so I read a lot about the Kennedy assassination, obviously, maybe 20, 25 books. And of course, the ones that assassinated Kennedy was the Fidel Castro, who hated him profoundly, the U.S. Mafia, and rogue agents from the KGB.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it's a long story about the Kennedy assassination, but that's not the topic right now. But her husband, Robert Kennedy, they messed up at the Bay of Pigs. All the Kennedy brothers, they had Dean Rusk, who worked not for President Kennedy, for David Rockefeller, a globalist, one of the most evil persons in the United States is the late David Rockefeller. And Dean Rusk, the Secretary of State under Kennedy, was for 10 years the head of the Rockefeller Foundation. And he was opposed from the Bay of Pigs invasion from day one, and he gave President Kennedy terrible advice to don't give us the air support that we needed, changing the landing site from Trinidad to the Bay of Pigs and so forth. So Kennedy listened incorrectly to all the globalists that he had in his own administration, the worst one being the Secretary of State, Dean Rusk, but the Bondi brothers in the White House, Orso Schlesinger Sr., and many other globalists, of course, they wanted to keep Castro in power. So, but Kennedy was humiliated together with his brother after the defeat of the Brigade 2506, and then he changed completely after that. When we were released from prison 2 years after the Bay of Pigs, he began working with our leaders seriously to try to bring regime change in Cuba. And because of that, he was assassinated by Fidel Castro. As I'm talking about the president, Fidel Castro, the U.S. Mafia, for different reasons that I can explain if you wish, and rogue agents from the KGB. So
Mhm.
that's what happened. So this lady, and by the way, and then Robert Kennedy practically ceased being Attorney General when we returned from the Bay of Pigs, and he began working full time trying to overthrow Fidel Castro. So both of them really wanted to get rid of Fidel Castro, and of course, they were both assassinated by communists. Sirhan was a Palestinian communist who was the one that assassinated Robert. So this woman, by having a picture of Che Guevara in her living room that you can see very clearly from the article in the New York Post, uh,
Mhm.
and also she has a dog that she calls Che in honor of the mass assassin Bloody Che Guevara. Who, by the
Mm.
way, Che Guevara, like Fidel Castro, asked Khrushchev to conduct a surprise nuclear attack upon the United States. Surprise, to kill us all. And moreover, Che Guevara was planning during the October missile crisis with communists in New York City to blow up the Statue of Liberty and blow up some of the tunnels in New York City. And that
Mhm.
plot was stopped by the FBI. So it was never carried out. So Che Guevara hated profoundly the United States and wanted to bring death and destruction to all of us in the United States. I met Che Guevara at the Bay of Pigs. I had a lengthy conversation with him, which I can relate to you if we have time. But he was an assassin. He would shoot people in the Sierra Maestras Mountains and wrote his father about the pleasure that he had when he killed people. And then later in January, when they took power in Cuba, the communists under Fidel Castro put him in the La Cabaña prison, where he shot 2,000 Cubans, including children, 14, 15-year-old children. He also assassinated them. He even opened a window so he could watch from his office while people were being shot down below against the wall. So he's a bloody mass murderer, and it is a shame that this Ethel woman, who is obviously betraying the legacy of her own husband and
Mhm.
certainly the legacy of President Kennedy, has a picture of Che Guevara. Of course,
Mhm.
now she is very much in tune with the Socialist Marxist Democratic Party, with people like Bernie Sanders, AOL, the Squad. More and more, this center-left Democratic Party has become an outright socialist party, and Biden, who's half demented, is adopting all of the ideas of Bernie Sanders.
Mhm.
So, God forbid the United States, if he wins, and especially if he selects Michelle Obama as her vice president, as is being rumored that that's going to take place. But
Mhm.
anyway, this woman is very sad that she lost Che Guevara. She also has gone to Cuba and visit Cuba, after the death of her husband and the president. And well, as I said today, now she's very much in tune with the reality. Now, in her picture, she appears with Maria Kennedy Cuomo, her granddaughter.
Mhm.
So, in other words, she had a son that married the daughter of Governor Cuomo. Of
Mhm.
course, loves to do infanticide. He's also another socialist who loves Fidel Castro, has been to Cuba several times, as well as his father, Mario Cuomo. Both of them have been to Cuba and met with the communists in Cuba. So, but anyway, so she's related to the current governor of New York,
Mm.
Cuomo. So, because her granddaughter, Maria Kennedy, uh, uh, the mother is a daughter from, I guess, Cuomo. Anyway,
Mhm.
so that they both of them appear together, and then on top of that, in the article, Robert Kennedy Jr. He mentions to the Post and other articles that her mother loved. He doesn't hide it at all, and she said that she had like a loving affair. Let's see if I can read it for you here. This Robert Kennedy
Mhm.
saying she had, talking about her mother, Ethel Kennedy, she had a very good relation with Fidel Castro. Robert Kennedy said, he said that she met the late dictator several times in Cuba and claimed she once persuaded him to release political prisoners. During the event to commemorate the 40th anniversary of the Cuban Missile Crisis in 2002, Fidel Castro dined next to Ethel Kennedy while Cubans and Americans and even a few Soviet military guys danced exuberantly in Havana's Revolutionary Palace, the Boston Globe reported at the time. So the love of Che seems to clash with the ardent anti-communist views, obviously, as I mentioned, of President Kennedy and Robert and Kennedy, who were, Robert Kennedy was assassinated in Los Angeles on June 5th, 1968, when he was campaigning for president by the Palestinian communist Sirhan Sirhan. And as I mentioned before, I've studied really who murdered President Kennedy and why. That's in that book. I have might be 100 pages there dealing with the Kennedy assassination. And also the first part deals with Cuba, the Bay of Pigs, what the damage that communist Cuba have done to the world, for Latin America, Africa, and Asia. Even Cubans had a brigade in Vietnam called Hiron Brigade, patrolling the Ho Chi Minh Trail, killing Americans. And Cuban pilots flew MiGs, shooting at our aircraft during the Vietnam War. And Cuba also sent 3 torturers to the Hanoi Hilton to torture our pilots. And 19 pilots were taken to Havana. That's in the book that I wrote. And tortured so horrendously bad, they cut their noses, their ears. They were so disfigured they could never be released. And 19 U.S. pilots were assassinated in Havana by the Castro regime. So that's Cuba, who hates the United States profoundly. And I've been trying for 50, 60 years now, trying to get rid of Castro.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of, because I'm reading a book by a former CIA agent right now, where he talks about the Soviets and how they used or the KGB, how they did a lot of espionage in America, still do to this day, I'm sure. But the only thing I can think of is that maybe Ethel Kennedy was used as a trap for these communists to deliver information by pretending she was friendly to the communists, and then getting them to release prisoners and getting them to. But I just don't think that could be the case. What are your thoughts on that? Could she just be pretending to be a supporter of Che Guevara in order to,
No.
No,
I think she actually has there's no reason for her to have a picture of Che Guevara right in her living room, and also to her going to Cuba so many times and meet with Fidel Castro. No reason whatsoever. She truly likes Fidel Castro. And of course, that's nothing surprised me of the Democratic Party today. More of them. Look at now; they're all siding with China. The Democrats in Congress right now, a country that attacked us with this virus, committed genocide in the United States and the world. And the Democrats are defending China and attacking Trump in Congress. So that's no surprise to me at all that she felt that way. And her son admitted that she always had this. Revolutionary streak. I forgot the words he uses about his mother. Yeah.
Oh, her own son said that. Okay.
Yeah, the mother. This is what he told Robert Kennedy Jr. told the Post. My mom loves Che Guevara. Her dog is named Che. My mom has a subversive streak. Subversive streak. That's what the son is saying about the mother. I have no reason to doubt that that's true.
Well, I mean, all I can say is, be careful who you marry in life, and maybe her intentions of marrying Robert Kennedy may have been to get America to switch to communism. Is that's just a thought running through my head. But who knows what her inner intentions are.
By the way, the first lady, Jacqueline Kennedy, she was aware that the Cuba assassinated her husband. She said it in an interview.
Oh, she said it in an interview, really?
Yeah, she did. She said it. She admitted it. And Robert Kennedy felt very guilty about the assassination of the president because he was trying so hard to eliminate Castro, including to assassinate Castro. This is after the Bay of Pigs. And that he felt guilty because he felt that what he was doing with us, with Bay of Pigs veterans. Remember, we had Kennedy gave us money to have a fleet in Costa Rica, and he was even planning a direct military attack upon Cuba. That was President Kennedy. He was planning that. That's why they did the October missile crisis to stop him from doing that. But anyway, they, as I say, they changed. They messed up at the Bay of Pigs, but both of them changed a lot. So Robert felt very guilty because he felt that what he was doing, practically not being Attorney General anymore, practically taking over the CIA. In fact, right here in Miami, which now we got building a museum here. The armed forces are building a museum. That was a place where the CIA had right here in Miami, near the zoo in Miami. That building is being converted into a museum, and on the top floor is going to be the U.S. Navy working there. But anyway, in that building, it's a wooden building. The outside of Langley, Virginia, the most CIA people that were outside Langley, Virginia, was right here in Miami, in that building, right next to the zoo in Miami. And all of them were trying to get rid of Castro, but do it very badly. They were working with a guy that actually was a double agent, so he would never be successful. And then they made a mistake prior to the Bay of Pigs, working with the mafia to try the mafia to kill Castro, when the mafia actually was working with Castro. Before he took power and after he took power, the mafia always had an alliance with Fidel Castro. And the United States made a mistake, the CIA made a mistake, thinking that the mafia wanted to get rid of Castro. This is prior to the Bay of Pigs. So that, of course, that failed because the mafia was in cahoots with the communist regime in Cuba. But anyway, yeah, it's sad that this woman is betraying the legacy of her husband and President Kennedy. It's very sad.
Do you think Robert Kennedy knew that Fidel Castro played a role in killing his brother?
Absolutely. Of course he knew.
So? Okay.
And so did Lyndon Johnson, who became very afraid that he was going to be next. Yes, they all
did Robert Kennedy ever make that sort of public statement? Do you recall?
Yes, he said it. And it's being reported by different people that I've read. He was very aware that it was Fidel Castro, and that's why he felt so guilty, because he felt that what he was doing provoked retaliation from Cuba. And Jacqueline Kennedy was very aware of that. Lyndon Johnson said it to various people that there was an international conspiracy involving Cuba and so forth. But that's in my book. I have like 100 pages. There were 3 Cubans at the grassy knoll the day he was shot at, including Escalante, who later, he was 24-year-old at the time, and Escalante later became the chief of intelligence in Cuba. And did a lot of disinformation, yeah.
And the man that was publicly blamed for Robert F. Kennedy's assassination, I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but I'm trying to remember the person who's
Well, the mafia wanted to get rid of both of them.
Yeah.
Because as I explained in my book, there's a great book. The best, I have like 25 books here on Kennedy, but the best book that was written, where you can buy for 85 cents in Amazon in paperback, is called The Dark Side of Camelot. And that is written by a New York Times reporter, a Jewish, Herman Hirsch, Pulitzer Prize winner, by the way. And he wrote the best book on the Kennedy administration called The Dark Side of Camelot, where he talks about how the Kennedy father, Joseph Kennedy, met in Chicago in 1959 with Sam Giancana, who was head of the mafia in Chicago, one of the killers of the president, by the way, later. And then he asked the mafia to help his son, President Kennedy, John Kennedy, Senator Kennedy, to win the 1960 election. So the mafia cheated everywhere in the United States. The election was stolen from Richard Nixon, who actually won the election, by the mafia. But once he's in power, Robert Kennedy becomes Attorney General, and the very people that helped his brother by cheating in the election, he goes after them. So then the mafia felt betrayed. I mean, we put him in power, and now
Yeah.
his brother is trying to put it. And all that is in recordings of the FBI.
Interesting.
The mafia people talking about the Johnny Rosselli in Las Vegas, Santo Traficante in Miami, Carlos Marcelo, the head of the mafia in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Texas. All of them talking about they're going to assassinate both of them because they have betrayed them. So anyway, that's all of that is in that book. If you want to buy it for 86 cents, I talk about that book in my book. Obviously, when I write my book on Cuba de Bello Pic's second assassination, every information that I get from a book, I put the book, the actual cover of the book, and what the book says, so you can see that I'm not a novelist. I just got that information from other books and good sources.
Well, Frank, so much for your great, information that you've provided during this conference call. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and then we're going to move into our Q&A session. So thanks, Frank, and I hope we can have you on again. Stay on the line with us so we can go into the Q&A session.
Okay.